What if 300 men were asked to hold back tens of thousands? The ground began to tremble before the enemy was even seen. From the horizon, Persia came like an endless black tide. Before them stood Leonidas, king, warrior, the last wall. 300 Spartans lowered their helmets, locked their shields, waited. They all knew one thing. This could be their final day. War drums shook the air. The enemy moved forward. The first wave crashed like a storm. But the narrow pass turned great numbers into weakness. Persia fell back, broken against stone and steel. Leonidas did not retreat. He only shouted, "Hold!" And when the dust settled, the Spartan line still stood. The first wave had failed, but Persia was far from finished. In the distance, new ranks began to move, tighter, calmer, deadlier. Spartan hands grew heavier, but none let go of their spears. Leonidas walked before the line, silent. Yet his eyes gave every order. Some warriors were still young. This was the greatest battle of their lives. Then the earth trembled again. The second assault had begun. Shields locked, spears aligned, the formation held. The narrow pass became a trap of stone and pressure. Leonidas fought where every soldier could see him. When one faltered, another stepped forward. No room for panic. As the sun lowered, silence mixed with exhaustion. And beyond the smoke, the enemy still looked endless. The second day arrived, colder and heavier than before. Persia changed tactics. Thousands of archers stepped forward. The sky itself seemed to disappear beneath arrows. Shields rose high. The formation stayed tight. Fatigue settled deeper into every breath. Leonidas remained calm, his voice cut through chaos. Then they came. Persia's elite warriors. Even Spartans knew this enemy was different. Two disciplined forces collided in a narrow throat of stone. Leonidas stood in front, never behind. But Thermopylae still favored those who held the line. The second day ended. They still stood, but time was running out. Night fell, but no one truly rested. Their armor was still warm, their bodies far more tired. Leonidas knew the worst had not yet come. They ate little, spoke even less. Some looked toward the stars, perhaps thinking of home. In the distance, Persian fires glowed like a second sky. But danger would not come from the front. There was a hidden path through the mountains. And that night, a secret began to move. The guards watched ahead, unaware of what climbed behind them. As dawn approached, the air felt wrong, too quiet. Then the message arrived. The enemy had found the rear path. The message was short, but devastating. The enemy was no longer only in front of them. Their leaders gathered. Every option was shrinking. The soldiers began to understand. This was no longer about victory. Thermopylae had changed from a fortress into a trap. Leonidas stood before his men. His voice was calm. He gave them a choice, leave or remain. Some began to withdraw, silent, heavy-hearted. But the 300 Spartans stayed. Not one moved. They did not remain because they believed they would win. They remained because they chose to. This was no longer defense. This was sacrifice. The final morning arrived, quieter than before. From the front, Persia advanced again. From behind, another threat emerged. They were surrounded. There was no road home. Leonidas said little. He stepped forward. Shields locked. The final formation began. The next wave struck harder than ever, but the narrow pass still forced the battle to stay fair. Their bodies were tired. Their line was not. Leonidas remained in front, never behind. Every second they held bought time for Greece. They were no longer fighting to live. They fought so others could. The pressure grew heavier. Still, the line did not break. Their shields were scarred, but still raised. From both directions, the walls of war closed in. When one weakened, another carried the weight. Even Leonidas was exhausted, but his eyes stayed steady. Now they understood. Their numbers were fading. Thermopylae had become a narrow world of dust and echoes. They stood, not because it was easy, but because it had to be done. Once more, Leonidas stepped forward. The formation shifted, no longer a line, but a final stand. In the middle of chaos, silence felt endless. The world seemed to witness one truth. They still had not surrendered. Their numbers were now far smaller, yet not one of them stepped back. The ring of enemies tightened. Leonidas stood calm, as if he had already accepted the end. They exchanged only brief glances. No words were needed. Their weapons were fading. Time was, too. But their discipline had not broken. Even their enemies began to understand. This was no ordinary defense. Once more, Leonidas gave the signal. Hold. They stepped forward, not to win, but to delay. Every second felt like a year, and though surrounded by an ocean of men, they still stood. Now only the final core remained. Exhaustion had moved beyond fear. The enemy's circle grew tighter. Leonidas still stood at the front. They knew this was no longer about survival. What they protected now was time. Beyond the mountains, Greece still had hope. So they remained, not because they felt no fear, but because they chose to stay. Leonidas had become more than a king. He had become a symbol. That day, Thermopylae nearly fell in silence. But their story had only just begun. By numbers, they lost. Persia finally passed through Thermopylae, but the time they had bought spread across Greece. Cities that once hesitated began to prepare. For the first time, many stood together. Thermopylae was not the end, it became the spark. New resistance began to rise. One sacrifice changed the direction of war. Their names did not vanish with the dust. The world remembered not their numbers, but their courage to remain standing. Sometimes history is not written by those who win, but by those who stand the longest before they fall.